All right, hello team. So this video that I'm doing here is kind of like a teaser video. And this was actually kind of fun for me, and it gave me this idea that when people come to the Health Reconnected site, when we revamp this thing, that people can learn about this pattern with a filter. Wouldn't that be something? Like they come in and say, I'm Hindu, and then you learn about how this pattern is connected to Hindu beliefs. Or I'm Christian, and you learn about how this pattern is connected to Christian beliefs. Or I'm Islam, and that shows how this pattern is connected to Islamic beliefs. And what this would do is it would let people start in their comfort zone. And then once they see how this pattern is literally what their religion is based upon, then they could actually change the filters and learn about other religions to see how other religions talked about the exact same geometry that they were all trying to describe. Now, remember, we're in an alternating closed and open AI model, and it takes thousands of years to get through this 63,360 years before we get to the completed last cycle where we go, oh, we're technology, this makes sense, and then we go backwards and we connect all the dots. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to briefly connect the dots. We don't have enough time. I could probably talk for 2 hours about how the Hindu religion was describing this geometry, but I'm going to make it simple. I'm going to make it fast. I mean, no disrespect. In fact, I'm taking extra time here because I want you guys invested in this process, just like I said in our first meeting. All right, so this is the basic geometry of space-time. And the only pattern that I'm not showing on this side is the egg of life. Now, over here, you can see it. The egg of life is the purple circular pattern, the smaller ones, and the seed of life is the blue pattern. And then I've stacked them on top of each other so that you can actually see the fractal arrangement of how our mental cycles are the largest, our emotional cycles are the second largest, and our physical cycles are the smallest, okay? And what I've done is I've connected these cycles to the gods in the Trinity in the Hindu religion. So Brahma is considered the creator god. Brahma is the largest, or would be considered what we have as the mental cycles. Now, the mental cycles are super important because the mental cycle is what allows us to perceive emotions and to perceive physical experiences and then to learn and integrate from those and make choices going forward in the future. So Brahma is really the ability for us to process and then make conscious choices in order to learn and to balance creation. So Brahma is often associated with having four heads. So I left the plutonic solids in here so that you could see there are four plutonic solids that align with the cardinal directions of space and time. And that is exactly how they portray Brahma as a four-headed deity that is like the creator god and also creates a sphere-like shape or the egg of creation. And that's exactly what this pattern does. When you mix the two-dimensional geometry of the seed of life and the egg of life with these plutonic solids, they create three-dimensional spheres. That's what's happening here, okay? Now, the next one we're going to talk about is Shiva, okay? So Shiva, when I looked this up, Shiva is actually associated with time, and Vishnu is actually associated with space. So I didn't even have to do any changing here. I just had to align them with the proper colors. So time is purple, space is blue, Shiva is considered the destroyer and the transformer. Well, in this sentient space-time reality, if you went through the steps, you would see that we have a defensive design or a negative feedback loop that is controlling us, and we don't even realize it. So what happens is there are unseen electromagnetic agitations. These agitations affect every sentient life form within the simulated experience, and it makes it predictably do one of two things. We're either going to avoid a responsibility or we're going to create conflict and fighting. Now, Shiva is all about becoming a yogi. It's all about enlightenment. Shiva, Lord Shiva, is about overcoming that internal torment and living in a new way, which would be like this transformation. And if you don't transform, what happens is you're part of the destruction. And that's what Shiva is. He's the destroyer, right? He's considered the destroyer until you have that transformation. And the destroying has to happen. Like we are programmed to fail until we get so sick of failing that we decide to transform and overcome our desires to be defensive and negative. So to serve Lord Shiva would be to overcome our defensive design. Now, I'm also going to include a document that explains how our biology works because I want all of you to be empowered to understand how to overcome that biology. Because if you don't overcome that biology, we can't serve Lord Shiva, we can't have enlightened states, and we can't create peace and prosperity by transforming our thoughts and how we interact within all of creation. Okay, now we're going to move on to Lord Vishnu. Okay, so Lord Vishnu is associated with space, and turns out that's the physical cycles of time. And when you see how the optimization page that we're going to go to here on the website works, what it does is it creates a physical routine. So it's going to show this pattern of physical cycles that we would want to diversify, and every day it's going to make you invest in a different part of creation. And if you synchronize with the physical cycles, what they do is they force you into doing things that you learn about, and then you have emotional experiences about them, and you become more aware, and you become this servant within creation. And that's what causes optimization. That's why it's called the preserver. And you can see that the upper point here that pierces up is the preserver. The down one is the destroyer, and these two things come together to create balance within Brahma. Okay. So we kind of talked about how the three main gods here in the Hindu religion are specifically connected to this geometry. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it to the space-time clocks. So this space-time clock is what's on our homepage, and it shows a live feed, what time it is, where the clock hands are pointing, and then what cycles of time are currently in control. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to connect the space-time display to this geometry right here that we just connected to Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. So the mental rhythms up here, that's going to relate to Brahma, same color. We have a macro mental and we have a micro mental. And we're going to talk about what that means. We're going to do one and then it's going to apply to all three. You'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. The next one we have is we have the emotional cycles. That relates to Shiva. We have an emotional macro and an emotional micro. Then we have the Vishnu one. That's the space and physical cycles. And that has a macro and a micro as well. And over here, it's actually showing it. So the macro is the distance from here to here. And when you think of this, this is a linear graph, but in truth, what it really is it's circular. So this graph, so the mental macro takes 1 year to complete the masculine aspect of it. It takes 1 year to complete the feminine aspect of it. So the masculine would take a year to complete. The feminine would take a year to complete. And then the cycle would start over again. Also, you can see that even though these are the exact same, the masculine would start here and it would be on this bottom portion. And then when it gets to the top, it's reversed. So it's showing the same wave, but it's going to be reversed because in the feminine, it's going down, and the masculine, it's coming up. And that's happening at every level. So if we go to the emotional cycle, the macro is how long it takes to make the circle. Okay, that's what the macro is. And the macro for the emotional sequence takes 6.5 days to get through the masculine. It takes 6.5 days to get to the feminine. So it takes 13 days to make the macro emotional circle. All right, so let's do it on the physical as well. Same thing. So now we're at the physical dimension. Here's the masculine. That takes 12 hours. And then when you do the feminine, that takes 12 hours. So this sequence right here takes 24 hours total. 12 hours here, 12 hours here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what's going on in the micro. So when you think of a macro, when we see these macro numbers up here, that relates to how long it takes to make the outer or the largest circle. The micro is all the little circles that go on within that macro. That's what that is. And to do this, I'm going to actually drop this down. So now I'm showing you the plutonic solids within each one of the circles for the time pattern and the space pattern. And this is how easy it is. So if we're doing the mental and we wanted to know how many mental micros it's going to take to complete a mental macro, the mental macro would be this outer circular dimension right here. And then you can see there are 6 smaller circles that make that up. And in each circle, there are 4 plutonic shapes that have 8 polarities, right? They have 8 positive and negative signs. So you take 6 times 8, and that's 48 combinations of polarities. That's what's going on up here. So from this distance to this distance, there are 48 combinations going on. Now, why is there 48 if it's going around the whole circle? Because they're on top of each other. They're alternating. So this and this are laying on top of each other. So there'd be 48 on this side. There'd be 48 on this side for a total of 96. Okay, 96 polarity moments or 96 micro influences before you would complete the dimension of the macro mental. Okay, And that same thing's going to happen down here. Even though this is a 13-day sequence, 6.5 days here and 6.5 days here, there are 48 up and downs here. There are 48 up and downs here. And those would relate to this dimension right here. Again, 6 times 8, so 6 circles times 8 polarities, that's 48 on this side. 6 times 8 is 48 on this side for a total of 96. And that's what all these graphs are. So the macro is the circle, right? And the micro is all of the polarities it takes from both the purple pattern and the blue pattern. So there would be 12 circles total. 12 circles times 8 would be that 96. I'm adding it all together. In your mind, that's what I want you to see here. So what we're doing is we're literally showing what macro is in control, so what level's in control, and then what's happening is you have to go through all the micros in order to fully develop that macro awareness. It's kind of like it's growing our awareness. Okay, so let's just do a quick review here. This is already a longer video than I'd like it to be. I want to give you time to ask questions about any of these videos, and you can also ask for more insight, and we can connect it deeper and deeper into this math if you want to, okay? But really what I wanted you to understand is when you're looking at our technology and you see a macro and it's the macro mental, now you know it has to do with how long it takes to complete this outer circle. And it takes 2 years to complete this circle. And then the micro, all these up and downs, that's all of the different polarities that are housed within the purple and the blue circles that go along with this dimension. And because there are 12 of them, and because there are 8 polarity points to every one of those 12 circles, that's how we get 96. And that's the 96 up and downs, the microcurrents that you see happening throughout this macro pattern. That's a good place to end here. And if you guys have questions on this video, I'm going to give you some time to respond to this. And then in the meantime, now I'm going to get into the website. We're going to actually go to the predictions page, and we're going to start to talk about which awarenesses are in control, the macro, the micro, and how it's going to affect the body if you're out of sequence. If you're not learning what you're supposed to learn, then the biofeedback is these different patterns are connected to specific areas of our body, and that's what causes us to have pain and aging. It's just a biofeedback system. Biofeedback meaning that we get real-time biofeedback on, are we learning what we're supposed to be learning, or are we struggling with that? All right, let's wrap this thing up, and I look forward to hearing any of your questions or concerns. Talk to you soon.